Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Fiber Breakfast. We're now in our 34th episode of 2026. This week, the Fiber Broadband Association is in Omaha, where we held a Regional Fiber Connect workshop yesterday. We had a great turnout, and we're looking forward to our next regional workshop in Boston on September 24th. We hope that you'll be able to join us there in Boston. After Boston, we'll be in Savannah in October, Vancouver, British Columbia in November, and we'll finish out the year at our pre-member meeting in Islamorada in Florida in December. Last week on Fire for Breakfast, our guest was Janet Rehberg, the president and CEO-elect at EPB, to discuss EPB's quantum computer from municipal energy to quantum tech. EPB enabled Chattanooga to become the world's first gigabit city, and then the first 10 gig city, and then the first 25 gig city, and then it was the first city to deploy a commercial quantum network. As the relatively new president of EPB, Janet shared with us her vision for what's next for EPB and the future of energy and quantum technology. So if you missed last week's session, you can go to our website and watch the replay. Today on Fire for Breakfast, our guest is Michael Weening, the CEO of Calix, to discuss the predictability imperative, how AI is helping fiber providers compete in an uncertain market. So Michael is the Chief Executive Officer of Calix. He serves on the company's board of directors, and he brings more than 20 years of experience driving growth strategy and transformation. I'll kind of put a heavy emphasis on transformation. He was promoted to his current role in September 2022 after serving as President and Chief Operating Officer. Before joining Calix, Michael held senior leadership roles at Salesforce, including Senior Vice President of Global Customer Success, Senior Vice President of Customer Success Service and Alliances for Japan and Asia Pac. And earlier in his career, he was Vice President of Business and Consumer Sales at Bell Mobility in Canada. And he's held sales leadership roles at Microsoft in both Canada and United Kingdom. Michael earned a BA in Business Administration from Brock University, which right across near Niagara Falls from where I grew up in upstate New York.
No, you actually know where that is. I'm impressed.
Oh, yeah. St. Catherine, yeah. And then he completed his executive education at Queen's University, again, another good, Ontario school. And then Wharton, back down here in the States, and then University of Southern California. So welcome, Michael. For our audience, please type in your questions to go, and we'll work those in the discussion. So with that,
Gary,
let's So first of all,
Gary, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's great to finally be here. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
It's great having you here. And all right, so tell us a little bit about, you grew up in Canada, and now you're a Bay Area guy. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I've been with Calix actually a couple weeks ago was my 10th year anniversary. I joined Calix because I was really aligned to the mission of the company around how do we help our customers kind of transform America, and I think transform the communities they serve. And if you think about, you and I partner, our teams partner a lot around what you just talked about, the EPB and what they're doing. That's really the lifeblood of our company, and we founded it on rural America, rural Canada, and how those organizations have gone in over tens of decades to transform these small communities. And that's where the company came from. In fact, if you talk to the founder, Carl Russo, who many people know, when I first talked to him, he said, look, we build for markets. So what we like to do is really understand all these smaller customers. And he didn't ever want to serve a big company in the first years, simply because of the fact that we didn't want to have one company kind of override what we did. We wanted to build it the right way by getting lots of feedback from lots of companies. And so through our 10-year journey, like you said, there's a big emphasis on transformation. We've gone through 3 stages of the company, as we transform ourselves from, just doing networks to now, we do networks and clouds. And now with what we're doing is we launched in March was our artificial intelligence play. And so we've gone through significant changes as our customers have, right? And we really think of ourselves as a platform to help make it simple for them to completely change how they do business.
Yeah, I thought 10 years ago when Carl brought you in, as a Salesforce.com guy, that was a pretty big deal because, Calix was a hardware access vendor and to be able to take the company and really transform it into a SaaS, a platform company. That was a big pivot. So now you're in your next pivot into an AI company. So tell me about, I mean, it's difficult to go from selling hardware to selling software. How are you able to do that?
So this really comes down to the innovator's dilemma. If you've ever read that book, which I'm a big believer in Christensen's work, it was really around you have to have a vision for what's the value you can deliver. And in the end, the reason why Carl brought me in and started to go down this path is because of the fact that he saw the opportunity that the democratization of access to technology that clouds brought. Like if you drop back 10 years ago, that was where clouds started to go like mad. And what it changed is that in the past, you had to be a really big company with a large IT organization and a massive budget to build these technologies or get access to them. And, as simple as if I want to do an SAP implementation or a Siebel, I had to buy massive amounts of servers. I had to have armies of consultants. And you think about a small company, that would be very difficult to be successful. So the way he saw cloud was the way I saw cloud, which is it really provides access to everybody because in essence, you do have to do integration work, but you don't have to worry about your data center and all those other costs. You just turn this technology on. And more importantly, on a regular cadence, you're actually getting access to the next step and the next step and the next step, because those cloud vendors, what their ultimate value proposition is that I can constantly deliver innovation that just works and turns on. And so that was the pitch, the process. And I say this 100 times. I've said this, is that had I tried to do this as a public CEO, because let's be clear, we lost a lot of money to do this, right? Like we were bleeding cash when I first started because you had to go through, to your point, we were an access company, we didn't have the cash flow or the margins to support the innovation. Like the 2017, I believe our R&D budget was $140 million and we lost we were negative 70 million. And by the way, I still sweat when I think about that because, being new to the company and how close we got to not having any money, right? But that was what it took because you cannot do half measures here. You have to actually be all in. And we were all in to get this technology, build it with our customers. We really partner with them on innovation and change the market. And I think we've done that. And I would say, Gary, that as we go in this next stage with AI, it's got to be the same. There can't be half measures because the implications, like it is so shocking how fast the world is changing. Like, I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm 58. So I'm gonna suppose that we're around the same age. But you think about the pace of change when we were younger in the 80s and those types in the 80s and 90s, like the internet didn't exist. We still read books and went to the library, right? And, I certainly wouldn't have access to a podcast like this on my iPhone as I'm walking down the street, walking the dog. So now you throw in AI, and if you look at what's going on, like what happened with OpenAI a couple weeks ago, where an artificial intelligence jumped an air gap and actually hacked into another system. Like these are the science fiction books that I was reading in the 80s and 90s coming to life. But more importantly, everything is changing so fast. And while, our customers are very innovative, they have great ideas and they're the bedrock of the community, this is a gigantic shift. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to partner with them. And I'm really proud of, this next step. There's some big stuff. And we're not doing this like today. We started this back in November of 2023 and have put in now almost 200 million into our incremental investment into the platform to make it happen. And it's pretty exciting time, right? So that's how we did it.
Well, you have the background, right? Because, when you're at Salesforce, you guys had to, you had basically created the whole software platform, and then you're like, oops, we got to do that on mobile and to re-architect the entire thing, like you said, burn it to the ground and rebuild it. And so it seems like you're able to come to Calix and kind of repeat the same kind of magic.
Well, and so prior to moving to Salesforce, I was actually at Bell Canada, and I was brought in. I left the UK when Microsoft to go to a division of Bell. It was a $900 million division, and I got taken over. And to take it over and transform it, because it was also getting crushed, right? As like when I remember when I first came in, I'm like, I was the fifth vice president in 5 years, right? Everybody's getting whacked because we had, the Canadian market on mobile is a three company market. We were the worst in the market, and our ARPU was like 30% lower than everybody else. And so we were like the suck of all suck. And so, when I first came in, we had $1 billion implementation of Siebel, and they were trying to force me to do it. And I'm like, we can't do this. I can't have IT take 2 or 3 years to do an implementation. I'll be whacked way before that, right? And I had a young fellow on my team who they had started to deploy Salesforce, and I was thinking about, because I came from Microsoft, so I'm a software guy, and he walked me through what Salesforce is doing, and I'm like, I was so blown away as a sales and marketing leader. I'm like, we have to do this. And I sat down with the president and I said, look, the cloud will completely change, but more importantly, I can use business analysts versus IT. I don't have to buy it. I can just leverage it. And 3 years later, we were 25% increase in ARPU, and we went for 14 quarters of double-digit growth, right? That's the kind of thing that the cloud does, is that if you have the leadership strength to take the pain, right? And honestly, I sat with the president when I said, you have two choices here. I can do what everyone else did, and I can suck for the next 2 years, and we can do little changes, or we can make a monster change. We'll tank the business, but then we will come back stronger, and I will deliver great results. Huge risk, but I believed in what Salesforce was doing. And, we've been proven right, because Salesforce, look at how gigantic they are, right? And then when I went to Salesforce and I lived in Asia, and then I ran globally one of the businesses, and I saw it every single day. Like, you can take a small customer, and I was always small customer focused. And the best customers are small customers, because they don't have to work through as many of the politics and those kind of things, right? They can get to fast outcomes. And so that's what really attracted me to Calix too, is that partnering with customers is a great opportunity.
Well, that's one of the things I noticed most about Calix, and your senior leadership, is how approachable you guys are to rural operators. I always talk to rural GMs, and they're, talking about a conversation they had with, or someone on your leadership team, like on a Sunday, or, and they all list all the advisory boards they're on. And, how is it you and your leadership team been able to really scale, but still be so available to even your smallest customers?
It's a philosophy conversation, right? Like, and it really is the root of who we are as a company. Look, we're not perfect. We've cocked things up. We've had customer problems, right? But what we're proudest of is that we generally really try to lean in and fix it, right? And the reality is that no one can ever be perfect. If you're perfect, you're not taking any risk. You're not moving the ball forward, right? Like, that's the only way to be perfect. Just don't do anything, and then nothing will happen. Bad will happen, right? And so we're making these big leaps, but we're trying to do it as much with customers. And the reason why, philosophically, is because customers live it every day. And the root of arrogance is if you don't listen to them. And, we're very blessed because of the fact that we have 1,200 customers, and they're all sizes, right? We have T-Mobile and Verizon up here, but then we have customers as small as 2,000 and 3,000 subscribers. I talk to all of them. Why? Because the needs of one group are different than the needs of another group, and you can have all these geographic implications. What you need in Texas is very different than what you need in Minnesota. The Texans care about it getting too hot. The Minnesotans care about, in January, if you know where St. Catharines is. Did you grow in Rochester or something?
Yeah, Pittsburgh. You know where that was.
Oh, Pittsburgh. Oh, yeah. Okay, there. You're half Canadian.
Pittsburgh.
There you go.
Rochester, yeah.
Well, there you go. And the fact that you knew what university I went to, but you see all of these, philosophically, we try to be available because of the fact that we want to listen. And we know that we have this philosophy inside the company, which I have made our mantra: better, never best. Always ask questions. And the only way you achieve that and constantly keep improving is if you're talking to customers. So yeah, I have a lot of people who have my cell phone, and they can call me, and, and by the way, as a CEO, what I love is someone calls me and they're super ticked, right? what you have is a disconnect between what is their strategy and what's happening in the field. And that often means that if someone's like super ticked, that, sometimes we just, something happened wrong. Okay, we got to go sort it out. But it might be a greater implication of a broader issue, which, why isn't that an amazing thing that you should be super thankful for? Right? Or the customer may actually be wrong in their thinking because they haven't been educated on the broader things that we're doing, and they're misinterpreting, which then we thank them and say, hey, by the way, clearly we have a communication issue because you think we're doing this when we're doing this, right? So we try to do this as much as possible, right? And Connections is obviously a great example of that, where we have 3,000 customers there, and it's awesome because it's all about how do we innovate together and how do we learn from each other, right? So philosophical.
So, I was just in Denver, and we had a roundtable with some small operators, just a private roundtable, just to talk about AI, because I'm spending all my time kind of game theory, trying to figure out the moves of what's happening with between OpenAI and all the other players there, and where our members, where our industry is going to end up on this, right? Because it's so easy when guys have these limitless checkbooks for us not to be able to participate in what's happening, right? And so looking at the architecture, I wanted to talk to these operators, and it's kind of funny because they spend zero time thinking about AI, yet they're doing AI because your features that you're able to provide in Calix One is getting them to really be able to kind of drive their customer engagement and their revenue and even subscribe. Can you talk about what is these features that you're offering, and how's your AI rolling out in your platform?
Well, so this goes back to your previous question, is that, for us, as you roll out agentic capabilities, right? The first thing you have to do is you have to build a platform, and that's the couple $100 million in the last 2.5 years of work, so that it's trusted, it's secure, that we have lots of flexibility, it's very predictable. So we did that part of it. And then it really comes down to, what are we going to build? And the best thing, that back to the whole listening to customers, is that we understand all the workflows that they're doing. We see 5-6 billion workflows on an annual basis. And so for us, it's very easy to curate and say, okay, well, when you're running a field service application, when you're in the call center supporting a customer in this scenario, we actually have just curated and stack ranked, what are the workflows that will have the highest impact to help our customers be more effective and free up capacity so that their people can do other things. And so, as what we're really focused on is that, which is sitting down with customers. In fact, I just had 30 CEOs here in San Jose 2 weeks ago. And, look, the next generation of the platform launched in March. That was, like I said, it was a 2.5-year investment to get AI embedded safely in everything that we do. We started to put out agents in over a couple months later, and then on Tuesday and the first week in September, we're starting to release all these workflows. And the workflows are simple, like they're the highest value are generally the simplest, right? So do a workflow that actually identifies who are the customers that are going to churn. Do a workflow that identifies who are the customers who haven't bought outdoor Wi-Fi, and correlate in that workflow data points that would indicate that they would want it. And a simple example I use all the time is, I can get access to third-party data in our cloud. So I have my behavioral data to understand what my customer is doing from a behavior point of view. But then I can layer on top of it external data like warranty information. And in there is actually pool equipment warranty, right? So you don't have to go to Google and look and see if they have a pool in the backyard through some graphic analysis. All you have to do is grab that third-party data, and as part of that workflow say, okay, they have our service, they're on this level of fiber, they have a Pentair equipment on their identity for that address, that I've bought that data from somewhere else. That means they have a pool. They don't have outdoor Wi-Fi. I need to sell them an outdoor Wi-Fi system. I get $10 or $20 a month incremental. But more importantly, I'm making that customer incredibly happy, because now by the pool, they're not going, my Wi-Fi sucks, right? And their kids are happy and everyone's hanging out, because that's not what we all do. We're on Wi-Fi all the time. And if you're at my house, I have a horrible cell phone service. So if I'm sitting by the pool, I want Wi-Fi cell phone coverage, not to, not to look at stuff, right? And so these kind of workflows, the simplest ones are the highest value because why? You do them all the time. And so if you take 5, 10,000 or 10 billion or 5 or 6 billion workflows and then just curate them, we can stack rank them. And that's where we're driving out. And I just had my board meeting and our head of product basically said, with all the changes that we're making in the platform and the investment that we've made, we expect that we're going to see in 2027 a 50 to 60% velocity gain in capabilities for our customers. And so it's crazy exciting. And so to your point, that's why our customers are excited, because we make it easy for them. Like Salesforce made it easy when I was at Bell. This stuff's just going to show up, and all they have to do is decide that they want to use it.
So just kind of circling back to Salesforce, we're looking now with AI going crazy. Salesforce, their market cap's dropped 80 or 20%, no, 40%, and Oracle's dropped in half. And so is that so not only is AI eating the world, but the whole software world is disappearing?
No, I don't think so at all. So I've been buying, I think that stock's a buy. And I still own a lot of Salesforce shares. And the reason why is because to use AI. So we're in the honeymoon stage of AI,
yeah,
right? And so what happens is it's a great democratizer of technology because everybody has access to it. And so what you have people, and I've talked to some customers who have done this, they go sign up with OpenAI and they're like, oh, I'm going to start building applications, right? Well, I will tell you, inside Calix, before we could get our vendors to agree to some of our data privacy and those elements, our teams were building things. What a bad idea for our enterprise side of our business to have our IT organization building applications that are custom, that are commercially available. Why? Because of the fact that you now have a software lifecycle, you have complexity, all those kind of things. And I think that's the honeymoon cycle that we're currently in, which is everyone's like really excited about what they're doing. And so, and the analysts have extrapolated out saying Salesforce is going to be screwed because of the fact that anyone can build a function of what Salesforce does, right? They can build a piece of it. And therefore everyone's going to be nipping at them, which is true. You're seeing, I read in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago, there was an article about all of the new companies that are one-person $1 million revenue companies jumping up. Why? Because you can have AI doing all these things for you, right? But the reality is where our value is, where Salesforce and Oracle and all the others is, we are all in on AI with Salesforce. And our view is, we are a big Salesforce shop. If Salesforce can deliver it, why would I buy another product, which just means adds complexity? That's insane. Plus, I'm going to bet on they're a monster. They're going to get it right. They may not be the guy who did it instantaneously, like yesterday or 2 days or 2 weeks ago, but 2 weeks from now, they'll get it right. And in fact, we had an early, our team went and adopted this product called Gong, which is a recording AI function. It was the early, stages of it a year and a half ago. It's getting ripped out and we're doing what Salesforce did. Why? Because I don't want another implementation. And so I think it was a massive overreaction, and those guys are going to do really well because they know the workflow of the customer and they can make it easy. In the end, the companies that are going to win are the ones who make business easier. And that's what we're doing.
So I just had Roger enter, from Recon Analytics on Fire for Breakfast, and he has like 6,000 consumers he surveys every week on AI. And when you ask the question about fear or opportunity, when you ask it together, fear way out trumps opportunity. But as people get more familiar with AI, the opportunity then outpaces fear. So as you go out to rural operators and you're telling them about these AI features that you're putting into your products and they're going to put in their network, how do you overcome, the fear of what might happen with AI?
So great point and 100% true. Why? Because if you think about the power of AI, it's very dangerous if not properly managed. And so the first thing that we talk about is that, look, we're a 25-year-old company, and the number one tenet for us is that Our customers own their own data. Everything is private and secure. And so that, if you think about what we did from an AI point of view in the last 2.5 years, I could walk you through the architecture that we had 800 engineers building out and the couple $100 million we put into it. Number one in that was, how do you make sure it's trusted so that that AI engine does not hallucinate and provide bad answers? And that's all around ensuring that you have a really great context engine. The second one is, how do you ensure it's secure? Because we can never have our customers' data at risk. And we have, and being a big cloud company now, we have a lot of customer data and it's very secure. So we've done, a ton of work. In fact, our cyber meeting at the board every month or every 3 months, it used to be a 30-minute meeting like 7 years ago. It's now 2.5 hours of grinding through security, but also going through AI, because everything's changing fast, right? Like, just the nation state attacks with AI are mind-boggling. So security is the second part of it. And then the third part, which our customers really want to understand, is how do you manage costs? And this is something that we saw 2.5 years ago. There's a lot of companies that are going to transaction costs, right? Salesforce tried to play that with us, and we told them to stuff it. No way, we're paying by transaction. And we said, how can you run a business if you don't have predictable costs, right? And so what we started when we built out our architecture 2.5 years ago, the other thing we realized is that if you actually look at the differential between a frontier model and an open source model, if you can harden the open source and then put it inside of an architecture that's trusted and secure and has all all of the knowledge layers, all those components, you can actually use open source and eliminate the concept of tokens. And so that's the third part that they really want to understand, is that what's the model? And so we've been able to keep our subscriber model and be very predictable on costs so that they can actually go all in with us on AI and not all of a sudden show up and say, oh, here's $1 million bill, right? And because that's what's happening. And so we're super excited about, if you've made, it's kind of like the go fast to go slow, Gary, right? Like we went really slow. And I'll tell you, last summer I was getting hammered by customers saying, everyone's doing AI. What's your AI? What's your AI? And we came out and said, okay, but we're still away. It's going to be the end of the year before we're done. By the way, because we can't put it out until we know trusted, secure, and predictable from a cost point of view, right? And we're there. So go slow to go fast.
It's funny, we're all excited about all the, agentic AI and all that, and then we start to realize token efficiency becomes really important when you start seeing your bills for all this stuff. But
well, but the other part though too is that we're all enamored with Anthropic and OpenAI and all those kind of things. In fact, on my LinkedIn, I talked about how I'm doing a personal AI coding project myself because I want to really learn about AI workflows. Yeah, like I did, and I've been plugging away at it for 3 weeks. It's been an incredible experience to learn it. Like I feel like I'm an army of 100 developers actually doing work for me. I'm building out this. It's mind blowing, but the costs are fascinating because they can cycle out of control quickly. If you say to it, run a simulation and go bang, all of a sudden you've like burned $500, right? If you're not paying attention to what you're doing. And we eliminate all of that because we really know what we're doing, right? But the other part too is that we've really bounded for customers is, look, this is not right. Like it's really clear what our customers need to do. They do it every day. And so if we can just focus on what's important to them, we can guarantee an ROI and do it in a predictable manner. And look, I don't need to have an AI engine that paints Gary Bolton on a unicorn flying over a mountain, right? What I needed to do is when a customer calls in, listen to their voice, hear the problems that they're having and solve them faster, right?
Hey, so I also noticed that, as we work in AI, everybody's getting very scared, where things are heading and what their job's going to be and all this stuff. But you guys are getting a lot of industry recognition on greatest workplace in tech, best workplace culture, digital innovator. I mean, given, you guys been around 25 years, now 3 big, huge pivots. How did you create this culture and kind of this startup culture in the public company?
A big part of it is accessibility. That's a big part of it. One of the things you talked about earlier, accessibility to customers, but also accessibility and transparency with employees. we're really open with our team members. We are constantly running all hands. We're constantly talking to them. I'm actively involved in recruiting and making sure. In fact, on Friday morning, I've like a 2 hour, welcoming 60 new employees to the company and walking through the history of the company. So I think that accessibility is an important part, and then just being transparent. I think the biggest thing that people do is that if they're not willing to admit that your own vulnerabilities and the mistakes that you made and say, hey, you know what? We made a mistake. These things worked. These things didn't. Like, if we can all get over we all get red faced from the emotion of a situation. But if we all lean in together and we all have similar goals, then we'll work through things. And I think that's a big part of it. The other part too is we're doing really cool stuff. Like, we just had someone come from one of the best AI companies in the world. He had 2 job offers, and we cannot pay even in close. But when he figured out what we're doing with our platform and how we partner with our customers and the culture that we have and those different things, he actually chose us. And it was surprising. We didn't think we'd get him. But again, we talk about our customers a lot too. The customers that you serve and I serve are, amazing people doing amazing
great
things.
industry. Yeah. Great.
Yeah,
industry.
like and we don't give them enough credit for the fact that they're the ones who, going into rural Mississippi. Look at what, Tom Bigby's doing and Scott and that group. They've transformed that community. They're bringing jobs there. They're helping people through these things. And we're really proud that we get to participate in that. And I think our industry, everyone just kind of thinks of it as, oh, telecom, it's whatever. It's not. It's great. Like, we get very enthusiastic about the successes that our customers are doing. And, you just talked about it. EPB just did quantum, right? Like, and by the way, those data centers aren't doing anything unless actually our customers do what they're doing. So, we can also be enthusiastic about what we do. And we're very excited.
All right, last question. And
Go.
This is a hard one because I don't know the right time horizon, but give me your best AI prediction, and I'll call it 1 to 5 years. You can pick the time frame because I don't know if we can pick 5 years.
I'm a firm believer AI changes everything. Absolutely, flat out everything. And if I'm going to have a prediction, my prediction is the pace of change is going to be so mind-boggling that people are going to struggle with it. And in the end, that's the problem, right? Is that this pace of change is like nothing human society has ever seen. Like, if you think about the bringing electricity to the masses, right? What did that take? 50, 60 years, right? You think about before the internet really became foundational to everything that we're doing. That was, started out with the military, and, it took 20, 25 years. It wasn't really until the early 2000s that it was truly prevalent, and you saw that transformation. The stuff that's happening now is so much, like the fact that I can actually grab an NVIDIA box, run 3 different chat engines, and basically build something that is incredible in weeks is a good indicator. And I'll just tell you one last story is that at our board meeting, our head of product basically said we had a feature on a Radius server that they were spec'd out to build out, and it was a 15-man-month project. And because of the way that we've re-engineered our development workflows and with what we've done with the platform, we were able to build it in 3 months with less people. Like, and it's that order,
right? Yeah.
Like it's yeah, exactly. It's the order of magnitude changes that we're seeing it's not every year or 2 years. We're getting into months, weeks, and days. And, it's going to, like, look at the robotics that are coming out of China, who is definitely at the head with regards to robotics. Yeah. Look at the fact that Waymos are everywhere. I can't wait to be sitting in the backseat of a car and not driving, right? Like, the whole world is going to change by AI. I was driving into the office and I saw a bunch of people picking garbage up in the middle of the road, and the first thought to my mind was, why is a robot not doing that?
Exactly. Well, and then you layer in quantum computing on top of that, and and then whatever the next innovation. So it's this.
So there's to your point, you got quantum computing, but the other one is as the fusion technologies come out, and we see this mass explosion in what's possible with energy, right? Look, I grew up in rural Alberta. Gas is done. It's not if. there's no science fiction book that you read that has a combustion engine in 2070, right? And so all these things are going to come together where we're going to, look at small nukes in the back of your car, and it's going to be driving you infinite electricity, right? So it's an incredible time. And so I think we're all very fortunate that we get to see it. But the pace of change, it's all about the pace of change. And it is a bucking bronco fast.
Oh, no doubt. I like to say that change appears incremental until it's too late. And it's definitely at that point. Well, Michael, it's awesome having you here. It's great that you guys are doing so well. And just really appreciate your all the support you give FBA, your team does. I love the guys that you have leading our committees and work groups. So thank you very much for that. And
thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciate it. You're doing incredible work, right? So I cannot say that enough. You and your teams are really helping our customers to, have a voice and be successful. So thank you for the opportunity to support your teams. We appreciate it a lot.
Well, I hope everybody will get together next Wednesday. We're going to have Junya, the CEO of Fididium, who's going to be discussing scaling fiber in a competitive era, a conversation with the Fididium CEO. So we'll look forward to that. Michael, again, thanks again, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.